Good morning, everyone. Nigel Mbayak here with KETIV Technologies, and welcome to today's AVA. As you can see here on the screen, we're going to be talking about what's new in Inventor 2018.2, and we've got Loren Welch, who is a product manager on the Inventor side. Hey, Loren, how's it going?
It's going very well, Nigel.
There you go. Yeah, and Loren's been here for pretty much every Inventor update since I'd say probably 2016, maybe even before that. So definitely thank you, Loren, for being back on again. It's always a pleasure from our side to have you here. So with that, we'll go ahead and just jump straight in. 2018.2, I think traditionally, I know that when I started here at KETIV, these updates were called service packs. And so I guess Loren can go over, a little bit of the terminology that they're using now with the dot updates as opposed to service pack and hotfix updates. And I think we should be able to get started here. If you have any questions, definitely type them in the chat bar at any time, and we'll make sure to answer those for you either at the end or during the session if applicable. So with that, I'll let you take it away, Loren.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Nigel, and thanks everybody for joining. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop into it. So again, as Nigel mentioned, my name is Loren Welch, and I'm product manager here on the Inventor product line at Autodesk. So I'm one of 7 product managers for Inventor and Vault, and really want to walk through our update, our .2 update for Inventor 2018. So what we really want to talk about is really just talking about Inventor 2018, just kind of in general, and then talking specifically about the updates that we've done with .2. And as Nigel mentioned, the focus of these updates has really been enhancing the product. We also, obviously we're gonna fix issues or bugs or anything like that with the update, but the main focus is delivering new functionality to our customers and really continuing to enhance the product throughout the life cycle of the release. At a high level, what we really focus on from a product development standpoint with Inventor 2018 is really around the areas of professional grade design, that core functionality and workflows that our customers use and need on a daily basis to get products from design and engineering down to manufacturing and to their customers. We also take a look at areas around expanded interoperability. We're very aware that you guys have to deal with multiple file formats, multiple CAD systems and vendors on a daily basis, and we want to make Inventor as prepared and ready for that environment as possible. And it's not just file formats, it's the different disciplines, whether you're looking at things like sheet metal, or you're looking at different manufacturing processes, different types of design works. Those are things we really want to be able to support our customers in a very robust manner. And the last area we really look at is really this idea of an experience where, as an Inventor user, you should have a predictable way of knowing how a command works or how a workflow or operations really behaves inside of the Inventor environment, and really being consistent with what that experience is. And not only that, but as you give feedback to the Inventor product team, whether through the Inventor ideas page or other areas, we really want to make sure that we can get those ideas to fruition in the product. And so user-driven enhancements is a big area of focus for us here on the Inventor and Vault teams. So that being said, let's take a look at kind of where we're at and where we're going with the 2018 product. So the first thing we'll take a look at is, as we talked about here, those different areas of Inventor we want to make sure we focus on. So with the launch of Inventor 2018, those ideas were really around, again, large assembly design and really adding model-based definition in that professional grade design focus area. And the interoperability was really about what we can do for our users in a variety of different ways. So we expanded AnyCAD to really work with Inventor. And what we're talking about there is having it so you can have cross-version support between Inventor 2017.4 and 2018. So you could have files work across versions, which historically has not been supported. We also talk about getting Inventor models into an AEC or a BIM-ready environment. So directly out of Inventor, you could write to an RFA or an IFC file. And then we continued our support of things like mesh geometry, not only in the assembly and part environment, but also inside of the drawing environment for a lot of those mesh type of data sets that our customers are getting. The Inventor experience was really around, Inventor ideas that were submitted by customers, as well as things like improving the measure and browser experience. So we completely rewrote the measure tool. We overhauled the browser to really give it a much more streamlined, not only look and feel, but also streamline the workflows that our users were commonly using. And then we redid some tools like interference analysis, etc. With .1, we expanded on these things, and we took model-based definition to the assembly environment. We took a look at iLogic and really managed how we did those global triggers and how they're managed inside of the customer's environment. And then we continued to work on performance specifically in the drawing environment. We added AnyCAD for Solid Edge, so adding additional formats for AnyCAD support. And then we put in about 20 additional customer-driven enhancements directly from the Inventor Ideas page. And that takes us right to 2018.2 update. And our focus here was again on iLogic. We looked at the autocomplete functionality, as well as modernizing the syntax colors to match other programming languages. We looked at sheet metal, and we had multi-body sheet metal, and we've done some work with that over the last few releases. And now we took it and we actually added some sync unfold rules, so you can apply these rules globally across multiple bodies or multiple sheet metal features. With MBD, we took a look at how people were using the model-based definition downstream from an Inventor perspective. And so we put some enhancements with our 3D PDF and our DWF and outputs with model-based definition. We added AnyCAD for Fusion 360, and that's both ways. So now, as an Inventor user, you can use AnyCAD to have associative workflows with Fusion 360, and Fusion 360 customers can have associative workflows with Inventor data. And of course, voice of the customer and listening to what you guys have to say, we added another 18 user enhancements directly driven from the ideas page. So that being said, let's go ahead and hop into some of the details here and really take a look under the hood of what we did. So again, in the area of professional grade design, I just wanted to reiterate, these are really the core functionality that our users need every day. And our goal here is to really make changes and improvements to really streamline workflows and help you guys get your designs and your work out the door. So if we focus on model-based definition, specifically with .2, we now make it so when you're writing out a DWF file, it can include all of those 3D annotations and model-based definition information. So those of you that are publishing TWIFs and using them heavily in your environment, it'll now support all the MBD information at the part and assembly level. The other thing we looked at with a 3D PDF was user feedback on just making that 3D PDF a little bit more intelligent and user-friendly. Those are typically, in a lot of cases, shared with users that aren't necessarily design or engineering savvy. So as you select a dimension or an annotation, it'll now highlight the face that is associated to it. And we added some additional tolerance annotations and states into the core functionality of MBD as well. In the sheet metal environment, we introduced this idea of syncing unfold rules. So you might have a certain bend rule that's applied to one specific bend or flange, and you want to be able to apply that maybe more globally across multiple features or across multiple bodies. And so now you have this ability to sync rules much more easily across different sheet metal features. So think about it if you have specific machines that are really doing a lot of your bending and fabrication. Now you have the ability to maybe have rules that apply directly to that based on how they're going to be manufactured, and you can apply them much more globally inside of the Inventor design environment. With iLogic, we really took a look and got feedback from our users who are really doing a lot of coding with iLogic, and they're doing typically a lot of coding with some other languages or programming tools as well. So we instituted the autocomplete. So as you're typing, if you put in a period and then you do a control space or a right arrow, it'll give you a list of the possible selections in alphabetical order of the variable that you can then place in there. There's a new header section in the rules editor that really allows you to put in those header statements, and they remain open. So next time you open up the rules editor, you'll have that in there. And it also, the autocomplete also works in that header section. When we take a look at syntax coloring, we have options there, so you can match between kind of the classic iLogic syntax coloring or match it with some of the more common or modern programming languages. So some really nice things you have there. And one simple thing that we've done based on user feedback is now when you do Control S, it'll save the rule right in that rule editor. So as you're typing, you can simply do Control S. You don't have to worry about your fingers leaving the keyboard and going and hitting the save command. So that being said, let's take a look at some of this. So here in model-based definition, you can see we have our part file. We have all of our design views established for how we've laid out our 3D annotations and model-based definition. And so now when we go to export this to DWIF, as we've done with DWIF in the past, you can define what design views you want to go with it. And now you'll see that's represented accurately in DWIF, which was there before. But now as you select annotations, it highlights those faces. And the same thing with 3D PDF is now we've got this export to 3D PDF. When I select annotations, it'll then highlight the face that's relevant to it. Here with the sheet metal part, you can see we have a multi-body sheet metal part, and we have a very specific rule on that one particular flange. Well, now I can go to a body that has variable fold rules, and I can say, you know what, all of the bends on this body will use this particular rule. Here in iLogic, we'll go ahead and go into the rules editor and just show you some of the options here. So first is we'll switch to the modern syntax coloring. We'll add a header section, and then from here, that header section will remain as you come back and edit this specific rule. We're not going to put anything in there for this one right now. Here we'll show autocomplete. So as I type parameter and I do control space, it now gives me a list of the different variables that are possible as I go through. And it'll list those alphabetically. And again, I can jump right to those available commands as I'm writing the language. So again, for new users, this is very valuable. For experienced users, this is probably even more valuable because it can make you even faster as you write your custom rules and snippets inside of iLogic. So again, just more examples of the different parameters and values that we can put in with autocomplete. So once that's established, obviously when I go ahead and run that form or that rule, you can see how easily it's applied and updated. The next area of focus, as I mentioned before, is really around this idea of interoperability. Many of you are familiar with AnyCAD and how we've invested heavily with Inventor, the ability to read in a variety of different formats and associatively bring those into the Inventor design environment without having to convert or translate. And as those native files change in the system that created them, you'll get that referenced update as if it was a associative Inventor file, for example. So what have we done around AnyCAD with .2? Well, we've done a few things. One is a lot of times the DWG underlay, you will go ahead and place it in the environment, and you have these dimensions that you can attach. Well, once you create that dimension previously on the geometry, and if you needed to move it or things like that, you had to delete the dimension, create a new one. Now you can simply reattach that dimension to a new geometry, and that will allow you to really change how that's placed in the environment. So you can basically drag the dimension boundary line and attach it to a different reference geometry inside of the Inventor environment. One of the other challenges we had is, especially as you're dealing with different vendors or suppliers that were sending you data, well, AnyCAD obviously was updating based on the file name. So if you sent me a file called ABC123, and I put it in my Inventor design environment, and then you send it back to me and it was ABC123 underscore 2 or V2, it wouldn't see that reference. Just like if you renamed an Inventor file outside of Inventor, you would lose the reference, but you would have the option to browse for that reference. So we've done the same thing with AnyCAD. Now you can actually resolve the file or resolve that reference by browsing in finding it. So it behaves even more like a native Inventor file as it comes to references and resolving those. The next big area of focus for us with AnyCAD as we looked is what formats we could add. And the big format we added and was talked about quite heavily at Autodesk University this year was the fact that we added AnyCAD for Fusion 360. So now Inventor and Fusion 360 have this AnyCAD reference that they can do between each other. So one of the things that's really important here is to understand really what's happening. So from an Inventor perspective, we're actually referencing in a cloud-based Fusion design file. So you don't have to move anything locally. You leverage this technology called Autodesk Desktop Connector, which will allow you to connect to Fusion Team and where those Fusion design data lives. So one of the things you have to be aware of is you will need access to Fusion Team to be able to take advantage of this or be invited to a Fusion Team location, because that's where the Fusion data lives. So this desktop connector is a simple utility that you can download, and it allows you to see into Fusion Team as if it was a local or a network drive on your system. So think about it similar to how things like Box or Google Drive appear in Windows Explorer. That's what the desktop connector will enable for you. On the Fusion side, you can actually move an Inventor part file into Fusion Team, and then it will reference in using AnyCAD technology that we've moved to the cloud to allow Fusion to have a live link or reference to Inventor part data. So this is a technology preview. So it's definitely something where we're looking for user feedback and validation, but we've released it kind of into the wild as a technology preview, and we're allowing users to use it as needed. Some examples of customers that have been using this in some workflows is really around this idea of kind of a supply chain workflow. So this might not even be within your own organization, but a lot of times some people might want to move Inventor data into Fusion if they're doing things like cloud-based rendering, some additive manufacturing workflows that Fusion is investing in, even leveraging some of the cloud-based simulation and CAM operations that Fusion 360 provides. Going the other way, it really allows the Inventor users to connect to the Fusion community in ways that were never possible before, whether it's concept or industrial designs that need to come into Inventor and really go into the overall industrial machinery or mechanical engineering design. There's also this idea of a supply chain. There's a lot of Fusion 360 users out there that are doing, running machine shops, etc., and they haven't had a good way to connect to the overall Inventor community. So this really allows not only Inventor but Fusion 360 users to really now have kind of a bigger community that they can work with from a supply chain and interaction perspective. So some of this might be within your own organization, but more than likely it's really about connecting different companies together that are either Inventor or Fusion-based design houses. So here's just a nice video we put together just to show how this works. So here's a data set where we wanted to redesign this particular handle assembly. So again, inside of Fusion, leveraging some of the sub-D modeling with the T-splines technology, it's leveraging the strengths of Fusion to do this conceptual modeling on what will be this this thumb handle on this fishing reel. So we have the multiple bodies that we can turn into multiple components inside of Fusion, and then the challenge we had there is before you had to save it off as a step file or export to get it into Inventor. Well, now inside of Inventor, when I do file open or place, I can now browse to that Fusion design file, and just like any other AnyCAD reference, it'll bring it and take a look at that reference, but in this case it's a cloud-based reference. So you can see I can load the model as a preview. I can selectively say what components or what bodies I want or do not want to come over into the Inventor design. And then I simply accept that and I bring the Fusion file into my Inventor assembly design environment. Just like other AnyCAD references, I'm able to constrain this. I can add new assembly level features. I have full range of tools and operations between the Fusion data and the Inventor data. So here I'll simply constrain it in place and show obviously that it works inside of the Inventor design environment. But the big thing here is change management, and that's the real benefit of any CAD over just importing a data set anyway. So because it's on the Autodesk cloud and leveraging things like Fusion Team, I can do things like markup, and I can add feedback back to that conceptual designer from the Fusion 360 side. So what they're going to do here is see the feedback directly in Fusion 360, and they'll add some additional features. So maybe they'll add it so some grooves for better gripping capability, things like that. But another thing to take a look at is we want to make sure that the integration between these two products isn't just topology based. What if the user decides to change the appearance or the physical properties of what we have in Fusion? Well, that'd be very important for the final design if Inventor made sure it read that properly. So here we'll go ahead and change not only the visual properties, but the material and physical properties of this design. Now over inside of Inventor, I can simply say check for update, and it's going to let me know. It's going to ping again our cloud platform. It'll see that that file is out of date, and I will simply update it. Now you'll notice that the material and physical properties came over, and that's really the benefit. So from here, if I needed to do additional things, like in this case, I can bring in that holder plate, and then I could use things like a bolted connection and add assembly level features to that Fusion-based design. Let's talk about going the other way. And this is important as well, especially if you're a product design suite customer where you have access to Fusion, but you don't have the HSM that a product design collections customer would have. So maybe you'd want to use Fusion for machining, or maybe you're sending your design work out to a Fusion house to have it machined. So rather than trying to import and do all this stuff with an Inventor file, they can associatively read it in with any CAD on the cloud for Fusion 360. So here we'll see we have the toolpath generated inside of Fusion 360. I'll make some significant changes on the Inventor side, and let's go back and take a look. So here inside of Fusion, the same thing, it'll update, and it'll update the native Inventor IPT file. So rather than regenerating the entire toolpath, you can simply modify or update the existing toolpath, saving significant time, money, and rework as part of this workflow. The last section we'll cover is really about this Inventor experience, which is highly focused on user feedback and Inventor ideas. So the first thing we'll talk about is this measure accumulate. So with the release of Inventor 2018, the measure tool was completely overhauled to reflect streamlined workflows, a much more user-friendly environment from the panel concept, and really laying the groundwork for how we want to refresh a lot of our commands in the future with these idea of panels versus dialogues or pop-ups and things like that. So what Accumulate does is it allows you to go in and select geometry and think about it as the memory button on your calculator. So it'll also organize it based on if it's a surface area measurement, an angular measurement, a linear measurement, and you can have separate groups that you're adding totals of. You can obviously copy those to your clipboard, you can delete groups and values, and you can historically see things that you've added. So we've really taken this idea of, I want to take a bunch of measurements, but I want to save them, and made it part of this accumulate values operation. We added a bunch of ideas just on a lot of feedback from the Inventor ideas page. So now when you do that ground and root components, not only is it with multiple components and configurable, it'll automatically remove the redundant constraints that had it placed initially in the browser. So we can also edit suppressed constraints now. So let's say you had multiple representations of an assembly inside of Inventor. Well, before, if you had, let's say one constraint that was, say 2 inches offset, one was a 1 inch offset, you would have to switch back and forth between representations to edit their values. Now you can edit the values even if they're suppressed, and next time you unsuppress it, it'll activate with the new value. We've made it so when you export images right out of the Inventor screen, you now can give it that nice transparent background. So if you're heavily using the realistic setting under view mode that allows ray tracing and things like that, you can get some very nice high quality imagery, and now you can save it off with that nice transparent background. We've done a lot of nice usability things. You guys know if you do a rough concept sketch, the first time you put a dimension on, it can kind of really move and kind of greatly alter your sketch based on how closely to scale you did that sketch with that first dimension you place in. So now we have an option of either allowing auto scale or not allowing auto scale based on that first dimension. We've added visibility toggles and face selections right inside of the canvas with the mini toolbar, so you don't have to go back to the browser, right click, make sketch visible. Just by selecting a feature, you can do it right inside of the canvas. You can do multiple closed profiles when you're assigning a hatch pattern or editing hatch patterns. Again, just saving you mouse clicks, saving you time. And then we've really taken a look at the Content Center and really improved how we do a lot of the searching, not only for the overall families, but individual members and scope as we go through there. So let's take a look at, again, those in action and what that really looks like. So here you can see we've got this belt inside of this mower deck, and we really want to see what the total length is. And there's multiple ways you can do this, but we're going to go ahead and highlight the new measure command. So by simply going into measure, you can see as these values are selected, they obviously appear. Well, there's a little plus sign now in the measure panel, and you'll add those to those accumulate values or measure. So you can simply add those in as needed, and then what it'll give you is obviously totals. So on the top, you can see I've got different overall measured lengths, and the very top is the total accumulate. You can delete individual or total values from that measure accumulate. Here you'll see, again, as we go back into measure, we'll select different things like surfaces. So if you're looking for total, surface area for painting or different applications, you can see that those are in there. So it'll actually bucketize those. So if I have linear measurements and surface area, it would separate those. Here we'll dimension our first sketch, and you see it was sketched at 14, we changed it to 7, and it changes just that one piece of geometry. Now I can say auto scale the entire sketch based on that first dimension. So again, a nice setting inside of your sketch or your application options that'll now scale the entire thing versus just a single piece of geometry. The next thing we'll take a look at again is just selection of different sketch visibility. So by selecting a feature, now right in the canvas, I can say make that sketch visible. So if I need to share it or reuse it, it's much easier than going to the browser and right clicking. Here we'll ground and root, and I will create origin flush, reposition in the browser, and I'll actually remove redundant constraints as it does that common placement. And here you'll see it'll add the flush mates between the two overall components and remove any redundant constraints. Here we'll see inside of this environment we have a suppress constraint. So obviously now we can show some motion. Well, now that it's suppressed, I can actually edit it while suppressed, which again, we know historically you would not be able to do that. It would make any edits or changes to a suppressed constraint. We've also added the ability to do a partial chamfer. So just like we have partial fillets and things like that, we now have the partial chamfers and the full chamfer preview inside of the assembly environment. Here we're searching in Content Center. As I search for bushing and select that, I can now start adding things again with that new search bar, and I can say look for individual families or members based on what I'm searching for. Again, just to make the search much more efficient and much quicker for end users. Here we talk about the hatch. So here you'll see I've got multiple hatch regions. Here we have all of the footers across this entire conveyor. And I can select all of them and do global edits or changes. So in this change, we'll change it to a proper concrete. And then the last thing we'll show here, highlight, is the transparent background upon saving. So here we have this frame for a funny car. And we go in here, and we've always been able to export an image. But now if we choose, we can also have the transparent background. So if you're looking for nice imagery for presentations and product reviews, you'll see now it takes in that nice image without having to deal with the background and do additional photo editing for your image. So that's kind of a nice high-level overview of all the different enhancements we've made to 2018.2. And the one thing I'll talk about next, it always comes up, is how do you get it, right? So if you have the Autodesk desktop app installed, back in December, you probably saw an alert come up and it let you know that it was, or in November actually, that it was available. And so you're able to access it directly from there, or if you log into your Autodesk account, you'd be able to download it. I know, Nigel, you were mentioning it earlier. We did have a quick hot fix on .2. So there's actually a 2018.2.2 that you should, again, see either through the desktop app or your accounts page. So just something to be aware of if you haven't downloaded it yet. That's the one that you will see that's available. So that being said, again, I appreciate everybody's time. I know I've talked for quite a while here. I'm more than happy to take any questions or feedback while we have time.
In regards to 3D annotations and MBD, Loren, is there anything in there yet for welding symbols or plans to do so? Is that something you've heard, on the ideas page?
So yeah, we've heard it from the ideas page. Weld symbols inside of the assembly environment have actually been there for quite a long time. It's not directly tied to our MBD efforts, but as you make weld beads and things like that, it is associated with the weld bead though. So if you're looking to do weld annotations without the weld bead, that's something that's not there yet, but it is something we've definitely heard feedback on and are taking a look at as part of our MBD roadmap.
Cool, awesome, yeah. And then in regards to the Idea Station in general, Loren, do you want to let users know how they can get to that and how they can, add some of their feedback as well, for things that maybe they want to see implemented in the next couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So if you're not familiar with the Inventor Ideas page, almost all the products here at Autodesk have an Ideas page. You can just search, online for just Inventor Ideas page. Formerly it was called the Idea Station, but it gives you not only an ability to put in a request or something that you'd like to see in Inventor, but you can see what other users have posted. We're very, very transparent on that page on ideas that we've accepted, ones that we're working on implementing on. And it's a way for you to have direct interaction with our product development team. So if you post something on there, there's a very good chance you'll get a response directly from an Inventor developer asking you more questions about what you really would like to see out of it, what your end result ideally would be, things like that. So it's something we take very seriously and is a core part of our design and product development culture at Autodesk.
Definitely, and it's got this cool thumbs up feature. So if you do like someone else's thing, yeah, thumbs it up. And the more thumbs something gets, the more visible it is to people like Loren. So if you really do want something, make sure you head over to Inventor Ideas to do so. Loren, do you have any insight on what else is AnyCAD capable in Fusion 360? I know they've kind of ported over some of the technology.
Yeah, I see the question there. So the question was, if the company has Fusion team, can I bring in Inventor or SolidWorks files into Fusion 360 and have them stay parametric? So the question is, so the answer is yes. Fusion 360's initial tech preview of AnyCAD is very specifically for Inventor and SolidWorks part files. So they're looking at parts initially, not assemblies. We took our AnyCAD technology and we kind of put it in our cloud platform. There's obviously a bit of work that has to be done around that. But the first formats that the Fusion team has built out with AnyCAD technology is Inventor parts and SolidWorks part files. So right now STEP is our most common neutral file. We provide that on the Inventor side. I'm not sure exactly when Fusion has it in their roadmap. But IGES files is something that we aren't currently looking at. STEP is far and away the most commonly used neutral file format that we're seeing. I mean, the second neutral file format for 3D isn't even close. I mean, it's almost like a 9-to-1 ratio of STEP to everything else.
Cool. So hopefully that answers that question. If you do have any questions about Fusion 360 in general too, anybody, we do have some dedicated Fusion 360 AEs on our team, as well as a dedicated Fusion 360 series of webcasts. If that's something you're interested in, definitely let me know, and I can get you connected with the right people to get to that. And then there's a couple of questions here. I'm sure you can see them, Loren, too, about parameters. Can measured data be linked or exported as a parameter? And then as well, can Content Center be searched by things like parameters and metadata as well?
So the first thing I'll answer is the measure command. So with the measure command, that since we've refreshed it, that's the #1 request we have now, is that they would like to link those values directly into parameters. So it's something that's on our roadmap, but it is not currently in product. Content Center is another area of focus for us. We're doing a lot of work looking into additional updates on different ways we can improve the searching and performance. So I would have to dig a little bit about parameters and metadata. I think we take a subset of that data, but I would have to double check on that. So that's something we can follow back up with. So.
For sure, cool. And here's a question from Henrik. He joins us pretty much every week, and I think he's in Europe, which is really cool. So definitely a worldwide thing for AVA. Henrik, and I'm sure most of the people on this call, if you're like the CAD manager for a fairly large organization, you probably have the same feelings as Henrik here. He says that they do a lot of testing before they install new versions, and they test synchronization between different locations all over the world, maybe even, you know. And then it takes some time, about a month to do so. What are the best ways to deal with that, to be able to test some of these new versions and things like that as they're coming out, you know, more often and often? Loren, add anything if I'm missing anything here, but definitely if that is something that you're running into issues with, trying to get everyone up and running and flawlessly after doing a bunch of testing for a particular product, reach out to us. We can help you come up with maybe a deployment plan for that. I know a lot of our users, they do some testing for about a month or so just to make sure that the product is compatible with the things like the assemblies and stuff that they're working with. But I assure you, people like Loren and the people on the Inventor beta team have been testing the software for quite some time. So definitely feel very confident about the products coming out, you know, solid without, you know, huge errors and things like that. But what I have for customers who have, you know, multiple locations that need to sync up all at once, generally for things like the dot updates, they don't necessarily install the dot updates, you know, and since it's like a one-click thing, they don't go through the same kind of testing for things like dot updates. Generally, you know, they just tell their users to go ahead and update and go. It's not as big of a change as, you know, a full-blown 2017 to 2018. And so, you know, most users only do that when jumping big versions like that. Do you have anything to add to that, Loren?
So, I mean, we understand especially for very large multinational companies, it is a significant undertaking to move to do releases. What we found is that, you know, most people will move right to one of the updates they find is most relevant to them versus moving to like the .0 or the initial release. But to Nigel's point, they're typically not consuming all of the updates unless there's something that's extremely relevant to a particular group or location. So some of the things that we've tried to do to ease that a bit for customers that have to do such large deployments is all of the updates are cumulative now. So you don't have to download .1 and .2 and whatever. You know, .2 is a cumulative update that would include everything prior. So if you have 2018.0 installed, that deployment or update for .2 that you would have to push out is much more comprehensive and less obtrusive than doing multiple deployments or pushes. So that's one thing. And the second thing really is, you know, we really had to focus on the quality side of things. So as Nigel mentioned before, you'll notice with Autodesk products, there's no such thing as service pack terminology anymore. So we're really leveraging these updates to not only give customers new functionality, but also for any relevant fixes or patches. So we've seen customers adopting these new updates at a rate about, you know, twice as fast as they had historically with other updates. Mainly because they're seeing new functionality, but also because of the quality. So obviously, we're making software. You know, we're not perfect. There's going to be some bugs or patches we have to put in there. But in general, we're really trying to put a focus on once that initial release is in place, that the updates are as reasonable as possible for consuming and deploying out.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's like super easy now, right? Before, as you had to maybe have access to things like the Autodesk account to get some of these updates and things like that. But with the desktop app, if people don't know what that is, if you look in your system tray, there is an Autodesk icon in there. And I'm gonna assume if you haven't looked at it before, it's probably got a red circle with like a star in it. That's the desktop application, and it pretty much looks the programs on your computer and sees, you know, hey, I need to update this version of my AutoCAD or my Inventor and things like that. And it's literally a one-click push to be able to load those things anymore, or load those things now. You don't have to necessarily download executables and things like that. It's really easy with the desktop application.
No, that's really it. Again, more than anything, I just want to thank everybody for being, Inventor customers, and thank you for your time. But if you have any questions or comments, obviously feel free to reach out to either the KETIV team or go to the Inventor Ideas page and put things there, or feel free to kind of reach out directly. So again, thanks everybody for their time, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to present today.
Yep, definitely. Thank you again, Loren, and for all of you, thank you for being here each and every week. Definitely can't put these on without the support of the community. So we'll see you all next week. Grayson's going to be going over some API programming and the difference between some of the API stuff and the iLogic stuff for inventors. So definitely, if you want to learn some more about some automation, be there next week, and we'll see you. Thanks again, Loren. We'll talk to you soon.